If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy happy hour, check out Cornbread Hemp's THC gummies. Cornbread Hemp produces America's first and only USDA organic THC gummy that's designed to help you unwind and relax. Right now, TBD listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/TBD and use code TBD at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/TBD, code TBD. Cornbread Hemp, this is the good life.
Last Tuesday, a new episode of The Tucker Carlson Show popped up on YouTube. In it, the former Fox News host welcomed an unusual guest.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you. I've heard about you.
Calling Fuentes unusual is generous. Really generous. Because Fuentes is, let's be real, an anti-Semite.
I would say, though, that the main challenge to that, a big challenge to that, is organized Jewry in America. I see Jewishness as the common denominator.
Fuentes is the leader of the so-called America First movement. In addition to the, quote, organized Jewry comments, he's called the Holocaust exaggerated. He's called Hitler really effing cool. He once compared the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis to cookies being baked in an oven. And it's not just anti-Semitism.
Nick is extremely famous for making really racist jokes.
That's Ali Breland. He writes about tech and politics at The Atlantic.
Saying the N-word, saying that black people should be locked up, that Jim Crow segregation was good. All of these kinds of just like deeply, deeply heinous things. But in the conversation, Tucker basically gives him a pass to like not engage with these things.
What was your reaction when you learned that Tucker Carlson was going to interview this person?
I was surprised, but not completely shocked. Nick Fuentes is someone that has really extreme far-right white nationalist politics that have made him persona non grata even amongst other far-right portions of the conservative movement. Tucker Carlson is not quite on Nick's level, but is someone that still seemed like he would not ever engage with Nick. People like Tucker and other sort of high-profile conservatives have gone out of their way to just ignore Nick, who was seen as just like extremely toxic for years.
In the days since the Fuentes interview dropped, a schism has appeared in the GOP. Conservatives like Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and others slammed the interview. But the head of the Heritage Foundation called those voices a venomous coalition and said canceling Fuentes is not the answer.
There has been a firewall up against Nick, even as the party has moved further to the right and engaged in more nativist and nationalist and like white nationalist rhetoric. There's still been this weird dance where the party is not, and members, like high-profile members of the party, both in and out of government, have not fully engaged with its far-rightness. But like this was a moment where that sort of wall came crumbling down, and this person who is seen as just like too taboo for anyone to engage with, like finally was like welcomed in the mainstream. And it was kind of this signal too. Tucker says this in the interview. He goes, I don't think you're going away, and kind of signals maybe that's why he needs to engage with Nick, because it's become clear that Nick is like enmeshed within the conservative movement and is a part of it, even if other people don't want to acknowledge that.
Today on the show, the GOP civil war over Nick Fuentes. I'm Shayna Roth, in for Lizzie O'Leary. You're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks makes it easy to find the perfect gifts and holiday looks that suit your personal style. The holidays can be a lot of things. Exciting, relaxing, heartwarming, and yes, sometimes even a little stressful. That's why you need Saks.com. Saks makes holiday shopping easy, stress-free, and most importantly, fun. Whether it's for yourself, your family and friends, or even the pickiest person on your list. You can feel confident going into this holiday season, knowing that Saks is there to help you find inspiration, curate a holiday wish list, pick out gifts for your loved ones, and have a look ready for whatever might come your way. Whether it's an office holiday party, a cozy night in, or a vacation getaway, Saks has everything you need. If you're looking for shopping to be personalized and easy this holiday season, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to shop for everyone on your list.
Let's back up a little bit to a little bit of Nick's history. When did Nick Fuentes start his arc as a prominent figure in the online right community?
Yeah, Nick starts to get really into politics just around the time of the 2016 election, like maybe just before. He's still kind of in high school. He's going to college at this time.
Yeah, he was 19.
Yeah. He even starts like a little bit earlier than that. He is like at that point though, like prior to his being 19 years old, he was like kind of engaged in more like standard right-wing libertarian politics. There's this old blog post though that I was like able to dig up a couple years ago where he's still like talking about politics with this sort of like sense of despair. He hasn't turned far right yet. But then that sort of bleeds into his politics further as like when he's 19, he goes to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. He like sees Trump and is initially like sort of finds Trump abhorrent, but then realizes this guy actually says a bunch of things that Nick like thinks maybe could actually be correct. He realizes he starts to see like diversity is this like really bad thing in the country. He sees America as like losing its whiteness, and he wants that to be preserved. And so he's like starts to radicalize himself at Boston University, and then he ends up leaving because of the backlash that he gets for attending Unite the Right, supporting Trump, and he ends up trying to strike it out as a conservative influencer, and he does a really good job of it in the sense that he's very successful.
And being an influencer is where he really gained that sort of influence and prominence. It was mainly with these online streams. You've sat through some of those. What's it like to watch one of these things?
It's really interesting to watch in extremes in that there's just like it's like a constant barrage of these just like absolutely reprehensible ideas about what every sort of group that is marginalized, Nick thinks should continue to be marginalized. And he says just like these vociferously hateful things about women, trans people, Black people, Jewish people, any sort of like matrix of sort of like anything, any identity that's not a white man will be attacked on a Nick Fuentes stream at some point. But the flip side of it too is that you also gain an understanding of like why his star has risen so much and that he is so enthralling as a speaker. He's extremely talented. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, we all do at this point, and like of anyone I listen to, Nick is probably like the sort of cleanest and most lucid speaker. And that makes for really good entertainment. He's also really clippable. So even though he's speaking just entertainingly for these like hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long lengths of time, he also is like really capable of getting these sound bites that can go viral on TikTok, which has been really helpful.
Part of what helps Fuentes go viral is the fact that he has a dedicated group of fans who are very active online. They call themselves groypers. Essentially, they carry out Fuentes' views online, often trolling and harassing people they don't like. The group's identity is centered around a variation of the popular Pepe the Frog meme.
Nick's fans, for whatever reason, latch onto this and they make this their sign, their name for like what it is to be a part of Nick Fuentes' army. And understanding groypers are actually really essential in understanding like Nick's reach. People ask me like, what are the ways in which Nick is influential? And like one of the ways in that he's created this dedicated group of people who have this very intense parasocial relationship with him. And they sort of like conglomerate around him and will like mob his enemies on the internet. When I've written about Nick, often those stories tend to get ratioed. That means, I guess, for your less online like readers or listeners, rather, it's like you get more critical replies to something you post than like likes or retweets, and that happens often because Nick's groypers will like swarm my comments and say a bunch of things about the story. Sometimes that's even translated into real life things. In 2019, he kept telling his groypers to go to real life events and swarm and like harass people like Charlie Kirk and Don Jr. to try to get them and pressure them into taking further right positions. And so like that's just an example of how passionate Nick's fan base is and how they've been instrumental in swaying the conservative movement.
Are there a lot of them, or are they sort of like a small but mighty crowd?
No one really has like a good sense of the numbers on them. I would say small but mighty is probably the case, but it's enough of a sort of constant to the point where I think that there has been a conservative wariness of them. Um, Charlie Kirk's team has denied that this is the case to me, but Charlie Kirk was someone that, like, when Nick started going after him, was much more. You could argue he wasn't like fully immoderate, but he was much more moderate. Like there were gay people, visible gay people within TPUSA. Charlie was like unabashedly pro-capitalist. He really rejected sort of a lot of the bleaker sort of like toxic rhetoric on race on the right. By 2022, 2023, Charlie is talking about how like white identity needs to be praised. He's criticizing Martin Luther King. He is saying like further right things on immigration. A lot of gay people have kind of been excised from TPUSA, or like they've left. There's the information, this is unclear, but there's not really visible gay people in TPUSA anymore by then. And Nick Fuentes is claiming that he has driven Charlie to this point. And so I think that the Groypers played like kind of a key role in stressing people like Charlie out to the point where they thought that they had to address this sort of wing of the youth right.
What has Fuentes done in the political sphere since Charlie Kirk was killed?
I think he's like largely continued. Like what he's done exactly hasn't been different, but he's started to be received a little bit differently. His criticisms have been taken of the right wing movement and like have been taken much more seriously. And like he's also induced criticism towards him. So like Candace Owens, again, people who like didn't really ever talk about Nick Fuentes, even though his profile had been rising for years, started to try to criticize him because I think I interpreted that as them being like, oh, we can't ignore this kid anymore, especially in the vacuum that Charlie's created where like the youth whisperer title, like there's no clear person that holds that anymore. And they saw Nick as like rising up potentially within that. And Nick just continued to like do what he's already been doing. He is probably like one of the biggest right-wing critics of the Israeli government and the IDF and what's been happening in Gaza. And I think that Nick was able to sort of like capture a lot of success in being one of the few places to go. I feel like you're a young right-winger, but you're frustrated with your party's positions on Gaza. And I think those are the main things that he's been doing since Charlie's death.
When we come back, did Nick Fuentes go mainstream? Or did the conservative mainstream go Nick Fuentes? If you've ever wondered how the digital world really connects behind the scenes, you're not alone. The new podcast, Interconnected, is a video and podcast series by Equinix that explores the hidden infrastructure behind our connected future, from data centers and cloud ecosystems to the platforms and people who use them. The hosts connect the dots between emerging tech, future innovations, and today's cultural and business applications. The third episode covers how the world's most essential industry, agriculture, is being transformed by digital infrastructure. What will it take to build systems that can sustainably feed the world's growing population? Food security goes beyond farmland and stronger crops. You'll hear about everything from edge computing in remote fields to AI systems that predict crop yields and reduce food waste. Discover the digital infrastructure powering today's biggest tech trends with Interconnected. Follow Interconnected on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Shape the future of enterprise AI with Agency, AGNTCY. The Internet of Agents is the collaboration layer that ensures AI agents can securely discover, connect, and work across any framework. With Agency, your organization gains open, standardized tools and seamless integration, including robust identity management to identify, authenticate, and interact across any platform. Join industry leaders like Cisco, Dell Technologies, Google Cloud, and more than 75 supporting companies to set the standard for secure, scalable AI infrastructure. Empower your company to deploy multi-agent systems with confidence. Is your enterprise ready for the future of agentic AI? Visit agency.org to explore use cases now. That's AGNTCY.org. AI tools are everywhere, but many of them create more work, taking up even more of your time. Most of them don't really give you what you need. Say hello to Superhuman, the AI productivity suite that works where you work, however you work. With the intelligence of Grammarly, Mail, and Coda built in, you can get things done faster and collaborate seamlessly. Think of Superhuman as your AI dream team, helping you with every aspect of your workflow. There's no need to copy-paste, repeat what you need, share the same context over and over again, or manage multiple AI tools across different places while you work. Superhuman guides you directly where you're working and helps you write clearly, focus on what matters, and turn ideas into real results. Get time back you didn't know you had. Unleash your superhuman potential with AI that meets you where you work. Learn more at superhuman.com/podcast. That's superhuman.com/podcast. So all of that background takes us to this week as folks are reacting to Fuentes' appearance next to Tucker Carlson. How are folks on the right reacting to this? How do they feel about him now compared to his earlier days of prominence?
Yeah, Tucker having Nick on produces these two responses. Nick is like very classically polemical, so naturally like people are going to be very divided. And so there's this like one response that you would expect, like people like Ben Shapiro, Dinesh D'Souza, these sort of like classical guys who've been in the conservative movement forever, that are very influential, have like this long history, but are still like a part of the old guard. They get frustrated. They're like, this is not okay. What Tucker's doing is not okay. Dinesh leaks old texts that Charlie Kirk had sent him, just where Charlie complained about Fuentes and called him like deeply toxic and just said these unkind things. But then there's this other wing that also is like talking in the opposite direction, and they're saying, we don't like Nick necessarily, but we don't think he should be canceled. His ideas should be debated against. This includes the president of the Heritage Foundation, the influential right-wing think tank that has been like absolutely indispensable to the development of like conservative and Republican policies and ideology for like the last decade minimum. This kind of prompts weird fallout within Heritage where some staffers are like subtweeting the president for making these kinds of statements. And then there's backlash to staffers kind of being seen as like potentially insubordinate. There's this whole mess. And so like currently the moment we're in is that there is this like, it's a trite term, but there's like a civil war and infighting on the right over this moment of Tucker having Nick on.
I want to ask you about a meal. Nick Fuentes had dinner with Kanye West and Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago in 2022. What was the reaction like to that when it happened? And what was different about that moment versus now?
This is a really important moment. Yeah, so Nick does dine with these guys at Mar-a-Lago. And according to his telling, it was like a really great experience. He was getting along with Trump. Trump didn't really seem to know who he was fully, which Trump later went out and said after he got criticism for dining with Fuentes. He was like, I didn't understand who this guy was. A lot of people doubted that reasonably. I don't know if it's true or not, but the fact that Trump was willing to say, like, I didn't know this guy and was trying to create some distance between himself and Fuentes indicated that Trump understood that it was not the best idea to be pro-Fuentes in that moment. If you flash forward that from the reaction to that to now, you can see that we're in a fundamentally different moment and that people didn't try to defend Fuentes at the time. Other members of the right, Republicans, went out of their way to say Fuentes is anti-Semitic. They said that it's not good. Like, we should not engage with these kinds of people. Around then, Marjorie Taylor Greene also spoke at a Nick Fuentes conference. She denounced him. Other members of the right denounced him. There wasn't this division that there is now. There wasn't two sides where some people were saying, we need to engage with Fuentes. It's actually okay. There was no one in his corner. He was universally denounced. This time is different in that Fuentes has backers. He has people who are saying, like, even if I don't agree with him, let him cook. And that's just like fundamentally different. It's like a marked change as to where we were in 2022.
So Charlie Kirk was 31 when he was killed. Nick Fuentes is currently 27. What does the age of these two people tell you about the politics of young people on the right?
I think that even Charlie, who, like, again, compared to Nick, was moderate, but, like, I think you could argue was not a moderate otherwise, still had, like, fairly far-right positions. Like I said, he was, like, trying to, like, criticize MLK. He also was, like, he called himself a capitalist up until his death, but he was starting to engage with more economically populist and nationalist positions. And I think that the Charlie and Nick having similar politics in a lot of ways, Charlie being substantially less publicly racist and like anti-Semitic, um, shows that there is this like tack towards the right amongst the youth in that these people, a lot of people on the youth side of things have further right politics than a lot of people who grew up with conservatism are used to seeing. They're willing to say racist things. They're willing to be kind of ethno-nationalists. They're willing to take immigration policy in directions that have not been the case in the United States for decades. I was talking to a historian recently, and he described the way that racial rhetoric is now as like a return to a style of racism that hasn't existed since the 1950s. There's even like rhetoric now about this concept of like heritage Americans and people who maybe are white but don't have a lineage that goes back decades in the United States. Their identity in some segments of the right is starting to be questioned. It's like we've hit this weird time machine, and these ideas that have been like frozen have like thawed out and are entering the world for the first time in decades.
This is maybe an unfair question because I'm asking you about people's beliefs and like how they feel in their hearts. But do you think we are actually seeing the mainstream right embrace Nick Fuentes and his actual beliefs, or are they just sort of seeing where the wind is blowing and are thinking, well, many of my base and my constituents want this, so I'm going to embrace it?
I don't know. But I have an answer to this. There is like a calculation that's being made, and I think that that is a part of it. Like you're definitely hitting at something real when you say that. I also think that there is some kind of sincerity. Like there are people on the right who maybe do not have the sense to not say anti-Semitic things. They have the sense to not really like speak these sort of bits of racism out loud. But like you can look at things like the ascent of like racial pseudoscience and the belief that people are tied genetically to IQ, like races are tied genetically to IQs and these sort of like different racist beliefs. And the salience that they have now is a salience that they did not have several years ago. These things exist on the right in all sorts of ways. The idea that like we need to have mass deportations to get rid of these foreign invaders is something that did not exist, but this is like the default position within the conservative establishment. I think that even if people are not quite on the level of what Fuentes is, there is a shift in the tone, style, and ideology of the people have towards matters of race that they're willing to publicly engage with out loud. And I think that it's unequivocal that that has all moved further to the right. Things have become more racist. Things have become more ethno-nationalist. And even if they're not on Fuentes' level, they're still not moving in a good direction.
The Trump administration seems to be embracing Fuentes, and so is the right. Do you think that this is similar to how the right has embraced other online influencers, your Joe Rogans, your Theo Vaughns? Is it like that, or do you see Nick's arrival as being something totally different?
Oh, yeah. Now, I do think that the Trump administration and the sort of rights embrace of Fuentes is very different than the Rogan and Theo Vaughn embrace. I think that guys like Theo Vaughn, Rogan, but Theo Vaughn especially, are less ideologically committed. That's not to say that they don't have positions. They certainly do. Rogan definitely does. But they are just like not partisans. And I think that they're very flexible. I think that Theo Vaughn is like very hard to classify ideologically. Um, and I think that Nick is different in that he is very explicit. He is like saying that you were a fan of Nick Fuentes is admitting that you were a fan of anti-Semitism. You were a fan of like calling different races subordinate. You were a fan of like women being in a lower position than men in society. And so, yeah, I do think it's like different. There's people on the right would like want you to believe that these things are all one and the same, but they're not.
Do you think we'll see a point where Nick is formally embraced in the way that Charlie Kirk was? Or do you think they'll lean to someone who is more acceptable on the surface?
Yeah, I don't think that Nick will ever be able to take on a role like Charlie Kirk, where like Kirk is like interfacing directly with the administration. He's helping vet people to like get jobs within the administration. But I do think that Nick can maybe gain something closer to like a not even quite like a Rush Limbaugh status, but maybe like an edgier, further outside the margins, but like still kind of like Rush Limbaugh status where like his role is distinct. He has his radio show, but he's also influencing the party. He has like a very clear role in that people know what he says matters. The administration is thinking about what he's saying and is maybe occasionally actually engaging with him. I think that there are probably, I don't know this for a fact, so I want to be very careful, but like we know that Paul Ingrassia has admitted he's within the Trump administration right now. I think he's like a liaison to the DHS from the White House, and he was being considered for a different appointment, which ended up failing. But text came out that he was a fan of Nick Fuentes and that he supports Nick Fuentes' politics. There's at least one person in the administration that cares about these kinds of things. There might be others too. We saw the New York Young Republican Club text leak that like they weren't Nick Fuentes fans, but they had these same kind of politics. And I think that like people are going to be watching with him. It's unclear how much they'll be talking to him directly, but they know what he's up to and they know what he's saying and they're paying attention.
Ali, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Ali Breland is a staff writer at The Atlantic covering the intersection of politics and technology. All right, that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell and Patrick Fort. Paige Osborne is the senior supervising producer for What Next and What Next TBD. Mia Lobel is the executive producer at Slate. TBD is part of the larger What Next family. One more thing before we go. The What Next team has a question they're hoping you can weigh in on. Now that this is officially the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, how has that got you rethinking your holiday travel plans or travel plans generally? Can you let them know? Weigh in by leaving a message on the What Next voicemail line, which is 646-582-0091. Again, that's 646-582-0091. We'll be back Sunday with another episode. I'm Shayna Roth, filling in for Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks for listening.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks makes it easy to find the perfect gifts and holiday looks that suit your personal style. The holidays can be a lot of things: exciting, relaxing, heartwarming, and yes, sometimes even a little stressful. That's why you need Saks.com. Saks makes holiday shopping easy, stress-free, and most importantly, fun, whether it's for yourself, your family and friends, or even the pickiest person on your list. You can feel confident going into this holiday season, knowing that Saks is there to help you find inspiration, curate a holiday wish list, pick out gifts for your loved ones, and have a look ready for whatever might come your way. Whether it's an office holiday party, a cozy night in, or a vacation getaway, Saks has everything you need. If you're looking for shopping to be personalized and easy this holiday season, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to shop for everyone on your list.